We've got some drama to talk about on today's show as Matthew Judon opened up about his time with the Falcons and specifically one member of the coaching staff, former defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake. He was at a charity basketball game, something to that effect over the summer or over the past week. And Judon said, when talking about Jimmy Lake's defense and his role in it, hell nah, it wasn't bad luck. If you go look at the film, I dropped into coverage on 60% of the plays. It's hard to get a pick and a sack on the same play. You know what? He's not wrong. I mean, one, it is very difficult to get an interception and a sack on the same play. I'm going to go as far as to say borderline impossible. But two, when it comes to the dropping into coverage part, he might be exaggerating a little bit. I don't expect players to walk around and have their, coverage snap alignments, memorized from a percentage standpoint. But I looked at Pro Football Focus, and here's how they charted Judon last year. 655 total snaps. That's 328 pass rushing snaps, which is 50%. Time out right there. That alone's a crime. Now, Jimmy Lake can't control when the offense runs or passes it. But 50% of the snaps are for the pass rush for Judon. That's not a good percentage. 36% came in on run defense, which left 87 outstanding snaps, which you can chalk up to dropping into coverage, which we did see Judon do with our own two eyes far too many times. And I'm not shocked that Judon comes off a disappointing 5.5 sack season. Atlanta gave up a third-round draft pick for him, and there's been very little motivation, it appears like, from either party for a reunion. But I'm also not shocked that once Raheem Morris replaced Jimmy Lake with himself, Raheem Morris, as the team's defensive play caller coming out of the bye, the defense played much better. I mean, points allowed is barely down. We'll call it the same. But it is worth mentioning that the Falcons played a couple more overtime games after the bye, so more opportunities for the opponent to score. But yards per game down, rushing down. Look at the rushing drop-off, right? Nearly 20 fewer yards per game on the ground from the opponent after the bye than before the bye. And that's what Morris credited to the reason for the sacks going up. Because with the stopping of the run on first and second down, it set up more pass rush opportunities on third down for Atlanta's pass rushers to get after the quarterback. But listening and reading what Judon had to say, it is a very sad reminder that last year was a wasted season due to coaching. There was enough talent on that roster to be a playoff team. There was. You can't convince me otherwise. The offense had playmakers all over the place. The offensive line was, at worst, an average offensive line. On defense, you were getting your last little bit of juice out of Grady Jarrett. Onyemata played some good ball. Caden Ellis was flying over the field. Jesse Bates was Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber safety. A.J. Terrell had the best year of his career in the last couple of seasons. It wasn't a perfect defense. I'm not trying to, gas him up here. But it was far from being as bad on, the box score as it should have been when looking at the defense on paper. Remember going into the season when they added Simmons and Judon? We all felt like, hey, this is the defense you might take in your fantasy football draft. Obviously, that never materialized. But it was not because of the lack of talent. It was poor coaching. It was Jimmy Lake being way in over his head as an NFL defensive coordinator. It was a poor decision by Raheem Morris to hire his buddy from LA. I felt like it should have been treated as you're going to be an NFL head coach for the first time because it had been so long since he was an NFL coach again, going all the way back to his time at the Buccaneers and his brief stint with the Falcons as the intern. He should have brought in someone with experience as a defensive play caller. And that's what he did this second go-around, hiring, unfortunately, yet again, another buddy of his, Jeff Ulbrich. But still, at least this guy's got actual experience on the job. So I place a ton of blame on Jimmy Lake for just being bad at his job. And then got to place blame on Raheem Morris for hiring someone for a very important job who was bad at his job. If you look at it from a military standpoint, Do you get mad at the president or the general when the battle's not going well? My answer is both. I mean, go back to the Civil War here, real history lesson right now. Lincoln was constantly firing his generals because they were all very bad at their jobs. And that does not make that Lincoln was off the hook because the generals were bad at their jobs. I mean, at one point, the Union Army found the plans for the Confederacy at a campfire, and they did nothing about it. Who do you put the blame on? Generals and Lincoln for hiring bad generals. Later on in the war, of course, he found some good, successful generals that changed the tide of the war. But getting back to the Atlanta Falcons here, bad coaching, and that to me, unfortunately, wasted what could have been a very nice building block season. Like, I didn't need Atlanta to go out and win 2 or 3 playoff games. I didn't need them to have a Washington Commanders type run. But do you know how awesome it would have been if in year 1, Michael Penix goes to the playoffs? Michael Penix, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, that trio that's hopefully going to be the engine of your offense for the next decade, get some playoff experience in either their first, second, or third year in the NFL. That would have been a huge win. That would have been very nice. It would have been a great building piece going into 2025. So I look at last year as a wasted season. And Raheem Morris is fortunate to get a second crack at it. A lot of times coaches don't. But he's got to, right the wrongs from last year when it came to the coaching malpractice. Having Judon drop into coverage. Gave up a 3rd-round pick for a pass rusher to play corner. Stupid. Speaking of Judon, by the way, if you're watching this, by the way, Matt, comment. And also, I have a prediction for you. You're going to get signed in August. And that's not like a backhanded compliment. I think at this stage of his career, getting up there in the age column, he had an injury not long ago. He comes off a down season. There's probably not going to be a ton of buzz or interest at the moment. But I think once training camp gets here, some injuries could start piling up. And teams like the Falcons last year give some of their players a week or 2 to see if they can prove to the coaching staff they can lead this pass rush. And if not, they'll turn to free agency. They'll sign Judon to a 1-year, $4 million contract. All right, one question I want to ask here to kind of wrap up today's episode. Will Raheem Morris end the Falcons fan base misery? Is this going to be the coach that finally gets Atlanta back on track? Back at the top of the NFC South, back in the postseason on a consistent basis, and back to being a team that people feel like, hey, this is going to be a tough outing on Sunday. Atlanta's coming to town. Is Raheem Morris the guy that's going to accomplish all that? I'm not even asking if he can win a Super Bowl, right? There's a lot of great coaches who have either never won or just won one. Just, can this guy get Atlanta back into relevancy? I want to believe yes, because everyone loves him in that building. But there were some chilling moments last year. To call a fucking timeout against Washington, I'll never get over that. I don't think I have to get over it too. Because it didn't just happen once, it happened at the end of both halves. And it arguably cost them the game and a shot at the postseason. Had they won that game, they go into the final game of the season then they beat the Giants the next week, and then they go into Carolina with win and we're in. And they probably play a whole different ball game knowing we control our own destiny. Versus win and the Bucs lose. I wish I had bigger balls at the combine, because I would have asked him if he practiced calling a timeout. I pussied up. It's different when you're, face-to-face with them and there's all these other big J's next to you. And I'm not looking at a camera. I'm looking at a face. So, yeah, call timeout. Damn it. You should get jerseys, by the way. I was supposed to do a read. My bad on that part. Go to chatsports.com/ATL rookies if you want to get a Pierce or Jalen Walker jersey. This link is in the comments and description of today's video. So check it out if you have not already. Let's pick a viewer from the comment section to give 2 claps to. Who's it going to be? Looking good. Is that Edward? Edward Prater. Ed, and Eddie. 2 claps for you. 1, 2. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow.